The West End apartment boom. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. I've got my Stein that I'm working through on this lovely Sunday here in Brisbane when I thought we would talk about the apartment boom in West End over in Brisbane. Now, I'll just bring up a Google Earth view of Brisbane here and you can see we've got the heart of the city here. You've got the Brisbane River cutting a unique path all the way through the city. You've got the CBD here, South Brisbane and West End over here. Now, in this part of the city, there has been a lot of apartment construction, large amount of apartment activity. It's all very close to the city. It's quite convenient. Public transport is, yeah, there's a train station here, but it's very dense, even in the housing. And it's a lot of people are moving there, and it's putting a lot of pressure on the infrastructure, on the roads, on the water system, on the busways and on the schools. And a lot of it has to do with the new apartments that have gone up, particularly around this part here. And what I thought we'd do is I went and had a look and just filmed some of the apartments to give you an idea, to have a look about and a talk about them, because we're hearing more and more about, oh, now's the time to invest, the market's good, buying apartments. But sure, I mean, okay, this location is close to the inner city. You get some transport. South Bank is fantastic, but you're competing with a lot of other people in stock that is exactly the same as everything else. So there's just an article here that we'll jump to, and so relief on the horizon after Brisbane disaster apartment boom. So they're discussing the apartment boom disaster, which in some ways isn't over. A lot of these buildings are still finishing. So housing construction in Brisbane's suburbs is set to ramp up by next year after the city's apartment boom disaster sent investors running for the hills. The BIS Oxford Economics Property Forecast predicts construction will bottom out this year before a surge in works in the order of 60% in the second half of 2020. Okay, that's a fair bit of time. So the apartment boom, which saw renters incentivized to sign leases with free iPads, weeks worth of free rent and gym memberships, crippled the market and drove building activity down about 15%, BIS Managing Director Robert Mellor said. It was a disaster. Anybody who bought up there suffered a significant correction in price, he said. You are not going to get the overseas investors suddenly piling back into Brisbane. They will have been burnt off by the excess supply that developed in the West End area and other parts of inner Brisbane. Now, just to remind everyone, this chart here shows the amount of foreign investment in property. Okay, and a lot of that is apartments. And you can see the black line there. That's the percentage of total building approvals for dwellings. It was over 90% at one point. That's insane. That is insane. And I remember putting proposals in for projects, apartment projects, were completely dependent on foreign investment. So Queensland is coming out of a period of weakness of overall building activity over the last 3 years. Mr. Miller said a dip in population growth, coupled with the oversupply of apartments, had battered Brisbane's buyers' confidence and slowed construction. Queensland has not performed population-wise since about 2010, he said. I have been forecasting in the building industry for nearly 40 years, and for most of that time, Queensland has always been one of the fastest growing markets population-wise. While it is still a solid growth rate, probably just under 1.6%, activity hasn't been strong enough to soak up the amount of dwellings constructed, particularly in Brisbane. Okay. But the industry was primed for recovery with a construction surge on the way for the city's outskirts, Mr. Miller said, predicting suburban Brisbane's biggest building boom in 10 years. It is going to be good days for Brisbane and more owner-occupied driving than a massive investor boom, he said. More owner-occupied driven. Well, that is the type of growth that you want. That is definitely the type of growth that you want. Could this be from interstate people migrating or more people buying in the suburbs? I know we were looking at areas in the city. We rented out here on Kangaroo Point. We just couldn't afford it, so we went further out. A lot of people did, and New Farm, it's all trendy and hippie there. Nice. The inner ring here is pretty expensive. When you get a bit further out, the Greenslopes Camp Hill area, it's doing okay. Gets a bit cheaper every circle you get out. I suspect first home buyers have been sitting on the sidelines. They will slowly get back into the market, encouraged by low interest rates. But the relief will not be immediate. Mr. Miller predicts the market will not swing up until mid-2020, when a suite of stimulus measures were expected to flow through to new dwelling construction, facilitating credit availability, reducing barriers to entry, and boosting confidence. These measures, including lower housing interest rates, with a further rate cut expected in the December quarter of 2019, the removal of the 7% mortgage serviceability floor by the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority, and the federal government's first home buyer deposit scheme, the report found. Another BIS Oxford Economics report released earlier this month, this is from a few months ago, predicted Brisbane's median house price would jump 20% by 2022, far beyond any other capital city in the same period, including Sydney at 6%, Melbourne at 7%. The median house price was expected to increase from $550 to $665 in Brisbane. Now, Brisbane, we haven't had such insane growth as Sydney or Melbourne. We have not had such insane growth. $1 million dump houses are not as common here, if at all. So what we'll do is let's jump over here and let's have a look. And this is, I'll bring up the Google Earth. This is, along just this part here of Brisbane, of South Brisbane. So, I walked along here, had a look just to get a glimpse of all of the apartments that have come up over time. Particularly see this empty site here. It's not empty at all anymore. It is certainly not empty anymore. So we will jump here. I'll just turn this on. So you can see here, this here is an older development, and that used to be one of the bigger projects in West End or South Brisbane. And here in the corner we have another office space above retail, and then apartments up above, and it just shoots right up. The scale of it, we'll notice, is quite different to what used to be in the area, understandably. But you've got these retail spaces that there's a lot of stuff on the ground level that's for lease or that's empty. And now we've jumped over. This is the TAFE site here. I mean, just look at how much stock is around here, guys. If you buy one, you're going to be competing with everyone else in there. I mean, that's the thing. A lot of stock. And then you've got all this activity here on the ground plane as well, down here, which, I mean, the building's barely, still under construction. It's still finishing off. But there's a lot of, stuff here that needs to be activated. And this was, recorded today on Sunday, so it was pretty quiet. There's another one back in the distance, an older multi-story apartment building, and this is the one I mentioned before. This used to be, I remember, this is one of the biggest ones in South Brisbane at a stage. Now it is dwarfed by everything that surrounds it, and you can see there's again commercial that's for lease. I like the brick on these buildings. You'll see it hides the weathering a lot better than some of the newer materials. Here we go, here's another big one off in the distance. Here to the right we have another mixed use, commercial on the ground with, apartments up above. And again, in this area, parking is a nightmare as well. It is a big issue if you're going to come in to use one of these spaces. And as we walk down the street, you can see in the distance a lower two-story, more traditional building. And here further in the distance, we're further down the street, there's another one that's gone up, another multi-story apartment building. So are a lot of these things there. So this is what was more traditional for the area. And we'll just pause here. You can see, compare the style of architecture. The windows were thin and high, not wide like we have these days because of the arch here, the lintel above. Because you can only span so much with the tech they have. But they still need to get an open of a window area to ensure you get enough air so people don't fall asleep. So that's why the architecture is really a sign of the time. And this is just a simple brick building. Police doing their patrols. You can see here in the distance some more apartment buildings all going up. There's commercial there, apartment, apartment, apartment. And notice how we've got the green everywhere. You'll see more and more of that. Brisbane Council loves putting their green plants on these buildings. There you go, there's another one. And here's more in the distance. They're just everywhere. And it affects the human scale. Sorry with the transition, guys. I'm just playing with Vegas Pro. And here we're looking up a little back alley, going up this tower there. I mean, there you go. There's no human interaction with a building of that scale. It just changes the whole dynamics of the area. And the issue is also, you're buying one of these. What's so unique and special? Probably the view. The view is the only point of difference you have. The only point of difference you have. And that's a new one that's just been finished. Boom, right next to each other, two of them. There's a lot of these apartments around, guys. And the school and infrastructure hasn't picked up. I don't think they realize families are going to move in here. Here's a real estate agency or a shop for sale, which I thought was interesting. Here we go across the street. This is the soda building, and there's a whole lot of for lease spaces down there. They've been for lease for a while. You've got the green going up, and then you've got high apartments up there. So more for lease, more for lease down there. As we go further on, you see. Actually, one thing I noticed was a lot more graffiti. Actually, a lot more graffiti in the area. I mean, I used to work here. We had our office here and a bit further up in West End. But I also had a job as a student. I was working in an architectural practice on Fish Lane, and there's a lot more graffiti around at the moment too. I guess that just comes with denser population. And here we have another apartment building. This is further down the street, next to the one with for lease. There's for lease spaces here. That's leased, good. And look at all the traffic you got there. And the interesting thing with this one, they've got the commercial spaces up and back a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how often they change hands with people actually engaging with them. And here we've got more of the graffiti coming here. That was actually the building. Hang on, if we go back, this was actually the building there that I worked in, and this here was all completely redone. I drove the Uber. I gave an Uber lift to the owner of the cafe in there when I was doing Uber ages ago, and he was saying it's a tough gig to make money. But yeah, no, I was quite surprised at the amount of graffiti I saw everywhere, because that's new. And there you go, another huge apartment building just sitting there right next to all the others. And this is their attempt here. For anyone in Melbourne that's watching, this is how Brisbane tries to make their laneways trendy. They just paint some crap on the ground to jazz it up a little bit. I mean, yeah, okay, good on them, good try. But compared to Melbourne, it's a bit of a joke. It really is. More of the green everywhere. Just put green, growy stuff everywhere. The problem is it's a maintenance issue and it damages buildings. It looks nice, so does fake stuff. I suspect that on jobs before. That would, architects would kill me if I said that. So here we have, looking around, and there's those empty spaces there. I just wanted to pause here just to look at the weathering here on the, nice, pretty tile. It's just aged, and weathered. And you got here weathering as well. It's just to do with the detailing. And compare that to the brick buildings, which are older. You just don't see the same level of weathering because the materiality hides it. And you can do details to address that, but it's going to be a nightmare to clean. Getting up there with a gantry or something. And yeah, sorry about that transition. This is looking across the street at the corner. There's some more commercial buildings. Here you've got more apartments up in the distance. Another commercial building there. This is one of the first ones I remember they built across their whole commercial precinct. And they had a really expensive shop there that ended up going under, but now it's back. So yeah, this is the restaurant. I think it's changed hands a few times. You can see just the change in height from the pedestrian level here to the commercial level up there. And if you're disabled or you have a pram, you need to walk all the way up the street here and come around to get access to it. So, I understand why they did it, probably because they didn't want to dig down as much for their basements. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. We'll see if it changes hands a few times. And here we have another. This is the other end of the tower. We looked at the back. I mean, there you go, another one all the way up there, just the same thing, guys. And you've got all, the plants that people have to maintain. They look nice, looks really good in the renders, but You got to remember this, it's a maintenance thing. And if these things leak, the planter boxes, they always leak. Always leak. No one can ever waterproof them. Something always happens. You know, it looks nice now, but rather a pot plant you can move. And here's that same building in the further distance. There's one behind it. And here up this street as well, you've got another 2, 3 apartment buildings as well. Just everywhere, coming up. So many of them in this area. There's some public art. There's a smaller one that used to be there. So just, I mean, think about this, guys. If you're buying in this area, you're going to definitely have a lot of apartment stock to compete with. And here's an older building. A nice older, a modern building, but built with older materials, and it's weathered a lot better than some of the more modern buildings. There's more graffiti down there too, you know, all the way up there. That's unusual for this suburb. Well, it used to be. Well, no, it's yeah. Anyway, let's see here the back of another apartment building a bit further down. So this place is just littered with apartments everywhere. And this is looking from close to the train station, guys. You can just see, these are just the few that were bobbing up there. And there is more behind, and there's more on the river. They're everywhere. Just the amount of stock that has been built in this area is insane. I mean, there you've got the, you know, they've got the museum over there, and over the other side you've got the Modern Art Museum. We've got the busway here, and then if we're spinning around a bit more, you've got, you know, theatre, performing arts centre, and then the old train station. And then you go onto the convention centre and South Bank precinct here. So you can see that the idea that there has been a bit of a boom, an apartment boom in Brisbane, particularly in South Brisbane. I mean, just this side as well. That's what we had a look at, or the old TAFE site. There's a huge number of apartments there. You've got another one, huge number of apartments there as well. That one we didn't have a look at that one, but there's another one. I mean, let's just jump in here and have a look. So there you go. That's, oh, we don't have an up-to-date photo. Google hasn't been to South Brisbane for a while. Okay, oh, there you go. I'm in there. You saw what was there before. Now look what's there again. Another one. And there, that was the one we looked at before. There's another one there. All along this street, there's so many apartment buildings. Just in South Brisbane. So it is definitely a market where you are spoiled for choice if you want to get an apartment. Let's turn on 3D buildings. Let's see if that gives us a bit of an understanding of this area. So yeah, they've gone up everywhere. And, you know, you've got some old industrial along the river. How long until that's going to last? How long until that's going to last? So we come along here, we'll have a look. There's more. There's a sports area. This here is another huge development right along the river, and just kind of gives you an idea of what has gone up down here. So you've got, you know, not as high as some of the other ones, but a lot of apartments. I mean, look at this, just lost in a sea of apartments. With the same old thing, with a bit of commercial down the bottom. I mean, we had our office just around here when all of this was getting built, and you can imagine how frustrating it could be. And this stuff isn't that old, guys. We'll have to see what's if there are any issues with these buildings. You'd hope it'd be okay. I mean, see this stuff here. If it's the material I know it is, it should be fine. There's an FC, a fiber cement that can get quite bright, beautiful colors, as opposed to any aluminium cladding. So which can be a much smarter way to get this effect, and it's much easier to waterproof. And it looks like that's what they've done because of the joints between it. Will be interesting to check. So guys, that's a bit of an overview of South Brisbane, or West End. really, and just, you know, what's going on with the apartments there and how many have gone up. You can see there is a lot of stock. A lot of stock. That area has changed. It has become, yeah, you're spoiled for choice if you want to get an apartment. So claims that there was a disaster in the apartment construction. Yeah, I would think so. So guys, let me know what you think. Would you be rushing to buy an apartment there? Have you bought one in West End? Would you raise a family in it? Do you think it's going to be a competitive market if you need to sell? Anyway guys, like, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a good Sunday. If you like my content and would like to support me producing more, I have a Patreon subscribe star. I also have referral links for Amazon and eBay where it doesn't cost you anything and you give the channel some support. Otherwise, just watch, share everything, and I really appreciate it. Take care guys, and I will talk to you later today. Bye for now.